All right. It's an honor to be here. It's good to see good friends, old friends, and everything. So it's great to be a part of this. And we're so fortunate to live in a country where we get to be doing this. So with that being said, if you'll raise your right hand, and if you'll repeat after me. I, Dwayne M. Carter,
I, Dwayne M. Carter,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will be faithful
that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers
and to the constitutional powers
and authorities
and authority
which are or may be established
which are or may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof,
that I will endeavor to support,
that I will endeavor to support,
maintain, and defend
maintain, and defend
the Constitution of said state,
the Constitution of said state,
not inconsistent with
not inconsistent with,
the Constitution of the United States,
not inconsistent with the Constitution of the United States,
and that I will well
that I will well
and truly execute
and truly execute
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of board member of the Surry County Board of Elections
of board member of the Surry County Board of Elections
to the best of my knowledge
to the best of my knowledge
and ability,
and ability,
according to law.
according to law.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Ms. Kay? Yes, ma'am. Want to be here in the middle and hold the Bible? I guess I should put it so you can get your pictures. I'm sorry. Okay. Because if you put your left hand on the Bible, raise your right hand. And if you'll repeat after me. I, Barbara Jean Kay,
I, Barbara Jean Kay,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will be faithful
that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers
and to the constitutional powers
and authorities
and authorities
which are or may be established
which are or may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof,
that I will endeavor to support,
that I will endeavor to support,
maintain, and defend
maintain, and defend
the Constitution of said state,
the Constitution of said state,
not inconsistent
not inconsistent
with the Constitution of the United States,
with the Constitution of the United States,
and that I will well and truly execute
that I will and execute.
That I will well and truly execute the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of board member of the Surry County Board of Elections
of board member of the Surry County Board of Elections
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and abilities.
according to law. So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. All right. I'm sorry. Get my hug there real quick. You know about me.
Let's get this in
Put
here.
you right here. Never get to say your name. Don't take one step this way.
Oh, okay.
There
We
you
gotta
go.
get this thing. In the other way we need to.
Place your left hand and raise your right hand. I, Henry Clark Comer,
Henry Clark Comer,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will be faithful
that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers
and to the constitutional powers
and authorities
and authorities
which are or may be established
which are or may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof,
that I will endeavor to support,
that I will endeavor to support,
maintain, and defend
maintain, and defend
the Constitution of said state,
the Constitution of said state,
not inconsistent
not inconsistent
with the Constitution of the United
with
States,
the Constitution of the United States,
that I will well and truly execute
that I will well and truly execute
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of board member
of board member
of the Surry County Board of
of
Elections
the Surry County Board of Elections,
to the best of my knowledge
to the best of my knowledge
and ability,
and ability,
according to law,
according to law,
so help me God.
so help me God. Thank
Congratulations.
you.
Yes, sir. Tracy. So, that's right up there.
Yeah. Faithful.
Yeah, yeah.
You should say you
We're good. Thank you.
Tracy will hold the Bible. Is that, how do you want it?
Why don't you put your son on the other side, each side of the mother?
Oh, straighten right here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that good? I'm the short one. You're the center. It's all good. If you'll repeat after me. I, William Andrew Poindexter,
I, William Andrew Poindexter,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will be faithful
that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers
and to the constitutional powers
and authorities
and authorities
which are or may be established
which are or may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof,
that I will endeavor to support,
that I will endeavor to support,
maintain, and defend
maintain, and defend
the Constitution of said state,
the Constitution of said state,
not inconsistent
not inconsistent
with the Constitution of the United States,
with the Constitution of the United States,
that I will well and truly execute
that I will well and truly execute
the duties of the
the
office
duties of the office
of board member
of board member
of the Surry County Board of Elections
of the Surry County Board of Elections
to the best of my knowledge
to the best of my knowledge
and ability,
and ability,
according to law,
according to law,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
See his face, all of his face.
Yeah, there you go.
Bring
That's,
you this way just a smidge.
that, yeah, that's
that
better.
All right. Excellent.
That's perfect.
Sir, if you'll raise your right hand, please. I, James Edwin Yoakley Jr.,
I, James Edwin Yoakley Jr.
do solemnly swear
Do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United
that
States,
I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will be faithful
that I will be faithful
and bear true allegiance
and bear true allegiance
to the state of North Carolina
to the state of North Carolina
and to the constitutional powers
and to the constitutional powers
and authorities
and authorities
which are or may be established
which are or may be established
for the government thereof,
for the government thereof.
that I will endeavor to support,
I will endeavor to support,
maintain, and defend
maintain, and defend
the Constitution of said state,
the Constitution of said state,
not inconsistent
not inconsistent
with the Constitution of the United States,
with the Constitution of the United States.
and that I will well and truly execute
I will well and truly execute
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of board member
of board member
of the Surry County Board of
of
Elections
the Surry County Board of Elections
to the best of my knowledge
to the best of my knowledge
and ability,
and ability,
according to law.
according to law.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. Yes. That's nice to-
Sydney will go back to recording. Okay. I'd like to welcome everyone to our July 18, 2023 regular meeting, and also swearing in ceremony for our board to take our oath that started at 12 p.m. So first thing on our agenda is the election of our board secretary. During an interim period of time that we were did not have a secretary, our senior board member, Drew Poindexter, was nominated and elected to be the board secretary, and he served in that position here for the last few months. And so now it's time to nominate and elect. So I will open the floor for nominations for our board secretary.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Gomes.
it would seem that Mr. Poindexter did a fine job during that interim period. Given that he is our longest serving member, certainly longer than the rest of the board. I know that Drew came onto the board in February of 2019. Has more knowledge certainly than I suspect of the machinations of the board. I would like to place Drew Poindexter's name into nomination to serve as our board secretary going forward.
We have a nomination of Drew Poindexter for our board secretary for the upcoming 2 years. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second by Mr. Yockley. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor of election of Mr. Drew Poindexter as our board secretary, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Mr. Poindexter, you are now our secretary to the board.
You're tasked with extra signing now. I dodged that bullet.
Per general statutes, I transfer the heavy duty to our distinguished elections director.
So the
Just a figurehead.
the minutes of our board meetings will be held and taken by our elections director and maintained. And you'll still have to stay 15 minutes after class just for all the signing, the signature.
Or maybe you can just.
Oh, that.
Just kidding.
Okay,
I really feel.
please, next on our agenda is the approval of our May 17, 2023 meeting minutes that are before you, marked as the minutes of that meeting. I'll give everyone an opportunity to go through those and read through those. I believe, Mr. Yockley, you were here for part of that meeting, so.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, you are correct.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion for approval as presented.
Gone. Motion has been made for approval of the Wednesday, May 17th, 2023 meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
We have seconds coming all over. We have a second by Mr. Yoder. Any discussion of the minutes, any changes, modifications? If not, all those in favor of approving the minutes of May 17th, please say aye.
Aye.
Nay, ayes have it. Actual minutes for the record will be passed around for signatures. Thank you. Next on our agenda is public forum. Is there anyone online? There's no one tuned in online. Is there anyone in the attendance here in the meeting room that wishes to make comments pertaining to elections or our board pertinent to our meeting? If you would, you have 3 minutes. Please give your name, your phone number, and the subject you'd like to address. Is there anyone that wishes to speak? Usually this is for comments or such, but if you want to address the director for a question.
Okay, well, Sandra Swain. What else did you need? Anyway, I'm just wondering about, if Surry County can go to paper ballots in Canton County. There are many of us that are concerned about the machines, the tallying machines. And would like to see hand counting and we use paper ballots already, but we'd really like to see the hand counting instead of using the tally machines that are the tabulators that are we no longer trust them like we should. So wondering if you would take that into consideration, please, to put it in place. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to comment? If not, I'll close the public forum section of our meeting. On your agenda, we have 3 things on the next line: conflict of interest statement, rules of decorum, and a memorandum of law from our attorney, Mr. Payne. Those are also in a packet that you have that's spread before the board.
That's the information under the heavy clip.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It might be wise for everybody to introduce our attorney at the meeting, if some people might have a question. Mr. Chairman.
by all means. I'm sorry that I have forgotten.
Well, I've introduced myself to everybody, but my name is Mark Payne. I'm the Board of Elections attorney. And this is the first of many memorandums of law that you folks are going to get. Anytime there's a question comes up, first of all, please feel free to, if anybody has a question, let me know and I'll get an answer to you. And typically I'll get an answer to you by giving an answer to everyone. You know, what I'll typically do is say, a board member asked this question. It's something that everybody should be aware of, and here's a memo that talks about it.
Please go ahead.
A little bit of, if you, for those of you, a little bit about myself. I've come here from Guilford County. I was the Guilford County attorney. And before that, I was the Johnson County attorney. So prior to going into private practice, I've been in local government for 25 years doing local government law, which I really enjoy and really like. I'm not sure what that says about me, but I've always liked it and enjoyed it. And I always like the government part, not necessarily the politics part. In my 25 years as county attorney, I had Republican majority boards and I had Democratic majority boards, and the law was the law all the way through. So that's what my goal is to let you know the law and let you guys do the rest.
Thank you. Earlier this summer, I was looking through some law and also was looking at one thing that particularly the State Board of Elections did prior to each meeting. So I started doing some investigating. And I guess I might be getting this sort of backwards. The conflict of interest, if you can find the conflict of interest. Yeah. And according to the State Government Ethics Act, before any meeting starts, that is a meeting of any of the department heads or any of the boards appointed, there is a conflict of interest statement that is read just as I guess as a warning sign. If you're driving down the road and you have a sign that says stop ahead, you know that it's coming, that you need to do something. As you see the state version, as it reads, in accordance with the State Government Ethics Act, we have the duty to avoid conflicts or appearances of conflicts of interest. Does any board member have a known conflict of interest or any appearance of a conflict of interest with respect to any matters coming before the board today? If so, please identify the conflict or appearance of conflict and refrain from any undue participation in the particular matter. And so I heard some state boards reading this at the start of their meetings. And it serves common sense that if we here as a county board of elections have something other in the hiring or the advice of the hiring to the Board of Elections director, that if that person might be kin to one of us or married into the family or something other, or they live 2 doors up and you just don't like them because of their dog, you ought to say, or you should say, you know, I do have a conflict or an appearance of a conflict, and I need to stay away from this to keep the board from getting in any trouble after any decisions made. Now, This the first thing that I read here, the state version. Of course, that is read by the State Board of Elections. It is read by any judicial, legislative, or constitutional officers, or the 3 different sections of the state, any boards that they pick and choose. Well, we may be here in just a few months, maybe, at the first of the year, having to read this very first conflict of interest, because if it passes, Senate Bill 749, the County Board of Elections here will be legislatively appointed. The 4 members will be appointed by the state legislature and Senate. So this is going to come if that happens. If it does happen, that'll be mandatory. Between now and then, or if for some reason that they make some changes, I think it's pertinent to this board that we have this read before the meetings. Just like I say, as a reminder. And so I sort of come up with a county version here. As the Surry County Board of Elections, we have a duty to avoid conflicts or appearances of conflicts of interest. Does any board member here, does any board member have any known conflict of interest or any appearance of a conflict with respect to any matters coming before our board today? If so, please identify the conflict or the appearance of a conflict and refrain from any participation in the particular matter. We're not under the State Government Ethics Act. Now, that's a cloud that could come over us at some point. But I spread this before you today, asking you if you are in agreement. If this is something that you feel for tidiness, to keep a clean and ethical board meetings. If it's something that you think that will help us and will, like I say, just be a warning sign that we need to be cognizant of the agenda, and that there's something that might be one of those things that I mentioned that could be a conflict that you need to make the board aware of. But to help do that, the board reading this at the first of our meeting to help you be aware that, Mr. Chairman, yes, I've got a little bit of conflict with this. So yes.
During my tenure with the North Carolina State Boards of Art, I had to attend every board meeting. And we were under the state ethics requirements. It was read prior to every meeting, as you just pointed out. Interestingly, because it was read each month, there were moments when things had changed for one of our board members, and all of a sudden they now had a conflict or were concerned about an appearance of a conflict. So, and also just this information, having served on private boards, it is a very common opening statement for business boards as well, just as a reminder. And with it being read each month, it does just give us another reminder, and it also captures anything that's changed from the previous months, or maybe months before. So maybe no conflict before, but maybe something has changed. I commend you for bringing it up. I think whether the Senate bill is passed or not, and we actually become legislatively governed, I think it's a procedural matter that does have impact and bearing for all of us and the public too. If anything, they can be rest assured that it's a question that we're asking ourselves each month, and we're responding to it. I support the idea.
Thank you.
Well, I don't think there's any question that it's appropriate. It's, and even broader than in the instance that you cite in hiring perhaps a director. Would it be appropriate for me to have worked on, once I came on this board 2 years ago, I stopped attending functions of the Democrat Party. I just thought it was the appropriate thing for me to do. While like y'all, I appreciated greatly my party putting me in this position, but I divorced myself for all intents and purposes from my party then, because I realized I now represent everyone in the county. But were I someone who had worked on the campaign of someone, and then, I mean, in an internal role, and then found myself 3 months later in this room looking at marking ballots where that person's name was considered on absentee ballots, would I not have a duty to say, I have a considerable conflict here? So certainly.
Mr. Payne, do you have any legal thoughts towards this being adopted for a county board that does not answer to the Chapter 138A State Ethics Act?
A couple of comments I'd make. Appreciate you giving me the chance. You guys are still not bound to by conflict rules. If you have a conflict that can prevent you from voting, you can't vote. Whether this statement's read out or not, I really appreciate your statement that just one of the benefits of doing this will remind the public that everybody here has looked at this question and they don't have a conflict. So I personally think it's a good idea, even though that's not my call. But you do have conflict issues that come up. The one thing I would say is, if you think you might have a conflict, please contact me. So, because a lot of times what you really want to do is disclose a situation and say you've talked to the attorney and it's not a conflict. That's really helpful for everyone, because one, it gives you guys a safe harbor. If you have talked to the attorney and determined it wasn't a conflict, then you can't be charged with a conflict, because you've done your due diligence in trying to determine if it is or not. So if you ever have a conflict question, please contact me so we can walk through it, and because every situation is different, and it's not an easy determination to make all the time if you got a conflict. For example, if the dog down the street barks, you probably still got to vote. So that's the one thing I would say is, if you do adopt this or not, if you got a conflict issue, please contact me.
Would anyone care to make a motion for this, or would you want to table this till next meeting?
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt a statement of conflict of interest prior to every board meeting.
We have a motion for the adoption of a conflict of interest statement to be read before every meeting.
Would that be, to be every meeting, that wouldn't be unduly time, would it? Just a statement about the conflict before.
Just reading the same.
It would be this one that's here at the bottom part.
20 seconds, maybe.
Right. I'll second it.
We have a second. Is there any discussion on the matter of a conflict of interest statement being read before our meetings? If no discussions, all those in favor of the adoption, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The ayes have it. We have at the next meeting, the county version as listed on that sheet will be read. Thank you. If in that group of papers, you will find meeting protocol and rules of decorum for meeting of the Surry County Board of Elections. One page has a preamble, and then it has 5 statements. You will take time to read that.
Need a motion.
Let's discuss it here for just a minute. Of course, Barbara, you still reading?
I was still reading.
Thank you. This is an item that, well, as I sort of gave as an analogy earlier, road signs. This is some of the rules of the road, I guess, as far as in our meeting between this board and the director and staff and attendees for keeping the protocol and as it is rules of decorum for the public forum portion, where we have set rules that we abide by to allow open forum, that we allow open statements from the county voters. It is not a time for discussion or debate between this board and attendees, but it is a time for public comment to be allowed, and under the rules as we have it here, where that this is the guidelines that we want to go by, and to have an open meeting. And so is there any questions or such as it is? Do you feel like that we need a meeting protocol and rules of decorum for our meetings of the Surry Board of Elections? I've seen some meetings, not of our board, some meetings get somewhat hostile. And this is not in Surry County. This has nothing to do even with elections, but where that it becomes a verbal debate and the discourse between the attendees and the board, and possibly one board member speaking for the whole board, and we don't do that. One person does not speak for the whole board. So do you have questions? If this is easy or hard?
It's easy.
Seems pretty easy.
It's easy.
Probably common sense, but when in time,
Well,
sometimes common sense don't come into play.
Well,
well,
it would seem you're preemptively just saying we're. The public forum section is a time for anyone who has any comment to make that comment. Then the board will go on about addressing the items that it has to address, and it's just clean at that. Just
There is one concern that I think most people have, and even citizens in our county, that is they want to feel like they have a voice and an opportunity to share that voice. And this is a great roadmap, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, to guide everybody, not only internally, but also for citizens that appear at a meeting, want to share information, discuss information. We have this to refer to and protect everybody. It's a good idea.
I'd seek a motion.
I'd make a motion to approve this as presented, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion and we have a second for adopting the meeting protocol and rules decorum for meetings of the Surrey Board of Elections. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We, at our next meeting, will have a meeting protocol and rules of decorum. Madam Director, do you think that this would be favorable to put under a tab somewhere on our website where it would be readily available for visitors to our website to see? And also that copies of this would be made available for persons here that comes to our board meeting to share with them so that they know the roadmap.
That'll be no problem for both.
Thank you. Next. Mr. Payne's assistance and looking over. We have finally a draft code of ethics for us, a roadmap for us, and what we're doing. Some of it calls upon what we are bound by statute to live by. It's a little longer. If you'd like to take a point in time to read it, and then also Mr. Payne may have comments on code of ethics as far as the challenges or who would dispense with any challenge to ethics violation or such. Again, I guess this is another roadmap to live by. I'll give you all opportunity to read it.
And if you like, while you're reading that, I can speak a little bit to the memo and why you have it in front of you. When the chair presented a draft code and asked me to look at it and make any comments, it struck me that that's a pretty good time to talk about what this board's statutory obligations are that already exist. And to comment on the proposed code. the one thing about the code that I think, in my personal opinion, that it's an advantage to the board. Whether or not you guys want to adopt it is entirely you guys call, not mine. But there are lots of provisions that I mentioned in this memo about statutory and regulatory restrictions on what you guys do. More so than most boards. There's a whole lot of statutory requirements. But the thing about all of those requirements is it's somebody other than this board that determines whether or not you guys have followed those rules. Sometimes it's a state board. In some cases, it will be a DA or a state prosecutor. In other instances, it's another entity. The thing about a code of ethics, if you guys adopt a code of ethics, you will be the ones that determine if somebody's followed them or not. So you get to govern yourselves through a code of ethics. Most everything that's in the code of ethics, there's a statutory analog somewhere, but I think again, personal opinion, I think it's good to have a code of ethics that you can point to and the public can look at and see that you've adopted. I also think there's an advantage to being able to have your own opinion about your own conduct instead of letting other folks be the final arbiter of that. So that was what prompted me to put this memo together for you guys and for your consideration. And it includes most all of the statutes and regulatory references are attached there. So you've got them, and you can see that there's already a lot of rules in place on your conduct, and of course that's a good thing, but it's a lot to keep track of.
The copies of the statutes that Mark referred to is
It's part of your
paper clip that was to go with the memorandum of law.
So if I'm understanding this right, the memorandum and then the accompanying statutes behind it really it's boiling down. That's to this. Okay. So what we need to spend our time on actually is reading okay. Thank you.
And I will say that a code of ethics, it's not commonplace for boards of elections, but it is common. But it's commonplace for local government and state government boards to have something very similar to that. In fact, a lot of that language tracks the draft code of ethics for small boards that was. That is adopted by an awful lot of local government boards.
The state has a whole chapter dedicated to ethics and the general statutes.
If the Senate bill does pass, where would that, if this group did adopt this today, where would that put it then? Would that have any effect, or would we just revisit once we see what that new law is?
Revisit it because one, if it passes, I would not assume that's going to be passed in exactly the same form as it is right now. And what I think, if it passes more or less as adopted now, you would need another memo to talk about statutory requirements. But I don't think it would require you to change the code of ethics as presented to you. if the board would forgive me, and if you don't mind, I need to step out first. We'll hopefully be very quick.
Please go ahead. Two words.
The section two, yes. The last paragraph on the first page, section two,
Fourth line from the bottom.
they should be not subject, that should be, they should not be subject.
I'll say one thing that Mr. Payne has done for us in these attachments for all the different rules and regulations as far as what we're guided by. With most, all of it comes out of right here. And this takes a long time to get to absorb just a scratch of it.
Amen.
And so this makes it a whole lot easier to pick and pick out of this things that is good to know now. That I thank Mr. Payne for in his absence.
I picked this up and expected it to be some complicated something, but it seems just a real
Yes,
basics,
Simplify it for you.
common sense. There's nothing controversial, it would seem to me, in this, what's on this piece of paper.
In these three different articles I've given the definition of roadmap. I've heard Clark say, I think on all three things, common sense. Mr. Yoakley has said he's had experience with a couple of them as far as being on boards. And so it's sort of, well, it's common sense. It's how we act.
And that's too, Mr. Chairman, not only to hold each of us accountable to each other, but I think it also tells the public that we take what we're doing very seriously and that it's for them, nobody else. And it lets them, I think it shows that we've got our act together and they can have confidence in us representing the people of Surry County.
Amen.
Accountability.
Absolutely.
If everyone is through with the code of ethics, of course, the laws that Mr. Payne, and I just applauded you, Mr. Payne, for pulling so many of the statutes out that are story of my life. Things that we are guided by, and that it's easy to read this than to try to pick it out of this big red book. With the exception of with the notation of the change in the second section, section 2, fourth sentence up, be not being turned around to not be. Any other items that anyone sees that should be or ought to be changed?
For the benefit of the new members, when I first got here, Susan handed out a paper that listed all the days that we would be meeting. And then she marked in red the ones that we were mandated to be at. That might be helpful, we were supposed to be here for all of them, but there's a few of them that it's by law, we have to, I'll be all 5 here.
In the handbook, there's a schedule, that'll take you through 2024.
Okay,
As it stands right now, pretty much that's gonna stay the same.
thank you.
Now,
Spoke too soon.
it doesn't have our board meeting dates, because we have called board meetings, we
Right.
don't have schedules.
Well, just mandated
Yes.
dates and
It's
then
not
we'll-
written in red, Drew, so we can amend that and put
Okay.
the written in red, though.
Is there any questions or further discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to point out the bottom section on the back page, that is our mission statement. For Surry County Board of Elections.
Which is excellent.
And
Thank
I
you.
mean, that's already, I just want to point that out. That is
Thank you.
already our mission statement.
I would seek a motion for the approval.
Make a motion for the approval of the code of ethics and statutory obligations. Surry County Board of Elections.
We have a motion for the code of ethics and for the Board of Elections. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Motion and second for the code of ethics for Surry County Board of Elections as presented and written. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. We have a code of ethics that Drew, that says Secretary of the Board and the adoption date after the change of the wording being turned around and it being the official copy to be signed.
You got them shaded, the ones we're supposed to, I think by law, so. Spoke too
That's
soon.
it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Stevie.
Next on their agenda is handbook.
Every board member to keep, refer to, it's chock full of information. Your second page is the contact information, and phone numbers and emails of the board members. And then our different ways to stay connected with our office that I would hope you would share with anyone that you might be speaking to that might want more information about Surry County Board of Elections. And then you see there, we've tabbed everything, so you should be able to find most everything pretty easily. And a very important tab is election official pay. We thank this board and we thank the commissioners for approving our chief judge, and assistant judge pay was increased last year, as well as our captains and co-captains and poll workers, $1 an hour each. So that is still in effect. That did go through budget this time as well. So that will carry us through the March primary. And then we'll revisit budget again next March for fiscal year 25. But also this board, there's a tab, I think it's early on your compensation and meetings and minutes, which you will see what your rate of pay will be as well as mileage. Yeah. That won't change for the 3 members that's already familiar with it, but yeah. So, for example, our conference coming up in August, you will get paid per day, just like a meeting. So, yeah, you're not making much per hour.
Okay.
So again, this is just basic information. We have our maps, we have our precinct list. We did include the annual report that was presented to the Board of County Commissioners in March. You have a copy of that. And then we have voter registration statistics. City does a fantastic job of keeping that very up to date on our website. So she did put the most recent one, I think this was last Thursday that she put in, so it's very accurate. But she keeps that very up to date for us. And then, the last page, that is just your include for when you will get paid. It's the last day of the month, but it's through the end of the year. Yeah, any questions about any of this as you go through it? Don't hesitate to give me a call or email. And then, Ms. Kay, Mr. Yoder, you each have your law book, there.
Yes, thank you.
And then at any time you leave this board, this is for everyone. Anytime you leave this
Return
board,
it.
return it.
Okay,
Yes,
so we're not to write in it or highlight it, or
right. Don't do
we
what I
can
did.
tag it.
I haven't been here, but it's tabbed out, but.
Okay, tab, we can tab
Yeah,
it.
okay, that's.
Tab it. Okay, yeah, and no,
Yes, and
Okay.
of course. Still getting papers in there, but.
Yep.
yeah.
okay.
So if
Can
anyone
we-
has any questions, just reach out to me.
See,
I
you
do
got,
mine by the day.
you got what constitutes a legal vote.
Yeah, oh, we got that.
Madam Director, could these three items that we just passed on be copied in the future where that we can incorporate that in our books
Absolutely.
and don't know if it'll go under other tabs, it's already applicable or how you want to do that, but that is these three new things are incorporated.
We'll
We
do a
can-
new tab.
We
and-
can put them in the next
Yes,
meeting.
I'll have it full punched and we'll have a new tab sheet for the next.
Great. Okay. Next on our agenda, legal update.
Yes, since we met the last time. Photo ID has gotten a little clearer. In the past, I think by the time we had our last meeting. And the state was maneuvering through. What information they were gonna be able to provide for the counties to use and also update to their website. And so I have included the latest version of the voter photo ID requirement. It's a front and back in color. That was just updated July 1st. So it's a great sheet to explain the basics with what voters will need to expect when they go to vote. I think we're already getting a few phone calls about it, and especially I think right now we're getting calls from folks who are older, who have expired license, and they have the fear that they're not going to get to vote. So clearly on the front page there in the little blue box, it says voters ages 65 and over may use an expired ID if it was expired
Unexpired.
on there, yeah. So if they're 65 and over, they can use an expired ID. But this gives some good examples and rules. And on the back, what if I don't have a photo ID? It tells citizens how they can obtain one. You can get one free from the DMV. You can also, soon, you'll be able to get one from the county boards of elections. I say soon, because they have not determined how they're going to be able to accommodate that database of photos and that information. They still have not let us know what form will need to be filled out or what documents will need to be provided to us in order to provide them that photo ID. So we're still awaiting that. We feel like by the end of the month, they will have that information to the counties. Because elections are coming quick for the counties. The second portion of that, they did vote on this at the last state board meeting. So this is what the form is going to look like for those who do have exceptions. And if you will see, all voters will be allowed to vote with or without a photo ID. And that back page of the code sheet gives you the example of they will vote with a provisional ballot. But that voter will need to complete this form as to why they don't have ID. And you know what that means? This board then will determine if that vote will count. So the provisional ballot, all provisional ballots come to this board to determine. That voter may return to our office anytime between the time they voted provisionally and the supplemental absentee, which is the night before canvass, and provide their ID, and then that vote will be recommended to the board to accept into count. We do have this on our website, so again, if you want to direct anyone to, if they have a lot of questions about photo ID as it stands right now, we do have this sheet uploaded. It'll take you right to the state's website where you can click on this form with others for lots of good information. But again, this photo ID exception form is the one that all counties will be using, and you'll see we will put our county information there with the election date as well, once that gets, close.
So this is pretty much in stone as far as the application.
Yes, the only things that's still undetermined is what form is going to be produced for counties to use for voters to get the free ID in the county offices. They have asked legislation the past couple of weeks if they would provide funding to the state board so they can provide another 5-note printer to each county. So we can make that process faster. We have one. I understand not all counties do, but we've had one. Thank you so much. And so we'll just wait and see what the General Assembly decides there, but potentially each county could be getting an additional.
That one printer, of course, we get the board office
It
for
would
the
be-
issue.
It would be in the board office, yes, and we would probably, we've discussed how we would put it in our office. But for security reasons, we would have it in the lobby, just so everyone's not passing beyond our secure door.
Yeah.
And then each night, we would take that table, whatever it's gonna be, inside the secure door. So that's just something we'll have to do each night.
Some type of a roving card.
Yes.
We were talking at one time about being able to lock that outer door. You could get it into that lobby section and be able to lock that outer door.
We have had,
No success there.
well, our outer door does not work for 2 weeks.
Oh, my goodness.
We finally got, well, we had someone come repair it beginning of last week, so that made us change our whole mindset of how we were gonna put it out there and leave it. So now what would be rolling in and out, because we were not secure for 2 weeks, just for that small lobby.
Mhm.
But that'd be, someone could take an iPad, whatever we're gonna use, tablet.
Yeah.
Laptop. Cause that room is used a lot after hours. So that our lobby was open to the public, to anybody after hours for 2 weeks. So
I'll be for that
a
one
small
door.
lobby, our lobby. Mhm.
Thank you. If you get that fixed.
A
Well, it is
maintenance
fixed
problem,
now.
a failure, maintenance.
It's actually in the lock itself, which is part of the security, the timer security portion. Any questions about that?
Sounds good. Next update we have is pertaining to the storage of the 2020 voting material, the tapes, the ballots. Anything else, Michelle, that's stored, what else, other items?
Well, ballots, tapes, absentee ballots, provisional ballots, anything except for blank ballots. Those were destroyed because that's what always happens with blank ballots. Because you have to order 100% of your voter population when you have a general election.
Yeah.
So that was 47,000 ballots you
That's all.
had to have. That don't mean everybody voted. So
Have to be prepared for that, man.
yes, so you have 15 months to get rid of that. So that's gone, but otherwise everything else, Mr. Chairman, it's still intact.
The maintenance or the time that we are required to maintain that, hold it, would have been September the 20th, September 24th, 2022. The board at that time, voted to hold all of the paper ballots, the tabulator tapes, result tapes from the election day, provisional, absentee by mail, supplemental, absentee, and all authorized to vote ATVs from the November 2020 general election. Voted to extend that. It was held, and I think we had some public records request that the tapes was wanting to be copied by one or two groups. And so that was requested to hold those, and the tapes, a group came in, set up. The Board of Elections, had to hire two people,
Republican and Democrat.
out of our precinct officials to be there to make sure everything is held intact. And this group went through how many precincts did they go?
Did they get,
I think they did one tested. I don't even know if they got the election day, but.
well, they were gonna go to early voting after that, but I think they just got through the testing phase.
And so they were photographing as the tapes were being pulled. And after how many days of work on this did they put into this?
Staff, but
Well,
in
yeah.
about 3 weeks. And it took, those individuals was here about 6 hours.
And so in 6 hours, they took this in. And have they said to you that they want to do any more, or have they decided that what they have is adequate and it would be too much to undertake the total?
Yes, they did, reach out to us the day after. Let us know what day you want to continue, so we can get that room on the calendar, because we don't hold that calendar. And Mrs. Swain, who was actually here today, emailed and said they were going to suspend that project, that they were not going to revisit that.
So the board, in an effort to hold and extend those ballots, tapes, everything from the November 2020 election, voted to hold this for an extra 30 months. That was quite an extension. And now, from what Ms. Huss said, that they've said that they don't want, or they are through with the time that they put into it in videoing the ballot, or not the ballots, but the tapes coming through as they were being pulled from one end of the table to the other, my understanding is. And so I think they saw that it was going to be a mighty big task, and they got a part of it. And we're under no obligation to continue to hold those ballots and tapes, other than previous board voted to hold them for 30 months, which would extend it to March of 2025. The storage, the rate for the storage location is going up.
Yeah, August the 1st. So it would be 108 per month. Instead of we started out, I think it was like 82.
So this is before the board today with the legal status. We've gone way far and beyond what legally the date that we could have destroyed all this. And it is destroyed by what means is,
We do have to hire a shredded company to shred it. We can't just dispose of it in the landfill. And then we do receive a document from shredded that it did occur.
okay. So the legal point in time has gone way past it. And the board gave a 30-month period of extension. There apparently is no further need or further request, public records request, that's been given to the staff. So would this board be inclined to stop this 30-month period and have the records, have the stuff disposed of properly, legally at this point in time? Or do $108 a month to hold it in storage?
Yes.
And I think we should do our, what is directed with other counties is we're way past the 20 months. That we're required, wasn't it 20, Shannon?
Yes, I
How
was
many
going
months?
to just update you, and that was in your minutes, I believe that we discussed at the last meeting. I surveyed all 109 counties. We received 30 responses, 13 counties destroyed on September 24th, 2023. 6 counties destroyed this year, and 4 will be destroying when the new budget takes effect. When they were holding it just when they do all their shredding.
Should that be September 24th, 2022 though?
That is right, yes. That's
So
correct.
22, okay.
The state legislature sets the, I mean, they set a retention schedule. There's a retention schedule set for the records. Same as they do in all offices for these types of records. And the records from the 2020 election were available according to that schedule through September the 24th, 2022, which certainly would be adequate time to review those records. But you know, that they have been available from then all the way to now, that the county has paid for storage fees for this length of time. You know, I would question our looking at it just strictly from a physical standpoint, the wisdom in that. I do look at it, given the questions about the 2020 election, although consider the outcome of the 2020 election here in Surry County. I don't think there is much doubt about what the outcome was, but nonetheless, I came here when to view those who came to review those records and take the pictures and to who had made the request, the public information request. I came and saw the staff spend 3 weeks.
135 hours.
Is an incredible amount of work that went into what had to be done to make those records available. And then to hire a Democrat Republican team to sit there. And it was the most tedious. I can only imagine, had I been the person that had been directed to come and sit and look at that, that I would have pulled what little hair is on top of my head out. I can understand why after 6 hours they said, I'm done with this. I mean, and I suspect that has a great deal to do with why they said, no, we've seen everything that we need to see. In light of all of that, I would make a motion that we now go ahead and end our retention of these records and destroy them, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion to end the retention of the November 2020 election ballots, which have been held over the time that was mandatory for them to be held. Do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, before we second, ask a question. I take it we still have the email from Ms. Swain, who says there's no further action.
I do.
Okay. At what point would we have to destroy these before having to go into another storage fees?
Well, it would begin. I do pay the first week of August, and I say that I literally call and pay, unlike our storage unit for everything else for Board of Elections. This one is by itself, so I asked her to please do it on a month-by-month basis. If they agreed to do that.
If you count that we have 21 months left to the end of what the previous board extended out of that 30 months, it will cost, if we continue with it for the full 30 months, it's going to cost the county $2,268 more dollars.
Chairman
Yes.
Carter, I have a question. You answered one of the questions because it's been in storage for 9 months, correct?
Yes, 9
And-
months over.
9 months over the 20.
Yes.
That, okay. Where was it stored prior to the storage units?
It was stored in our storage area here, which houses all our voting equipment. And then as the primary of 22 ended, that was over there.
Oh,
And then the general, so
So
when
we
the
had
general
this
came over. we had no
That's
more
larger.
shelves.
yeah,
We had no more floor space.
Okay. I get it.
That-
Okay.
That's why it had to go to a.
Y'all need to get the tour.
You
Okay,
can get
that's
this
it.
over.
Maybe one more question.
Sure.
Have we heard anything further from the other groups expressing that they expect this board to uphold the 30 months? I mean, as a
No, sir, to date, I have not. I don't know if any of the board members, I have not heard from anyone else.
Yes, ma'am.
Chairman Carter, did the previous 2 board members request the 30 months? Did they request that in particular for a particular reason other than to, go back and review if necessary? But did they request 30 months or was that just a time period that was offered?
Are you asking who made the motion or?
No. No, I'm asking if 30 months was offered by the board? Or was it asked by a certain member of the board?
I think 30 months,
Was maybe something that the state or recommended or?
no.
No, okay.
The board,
The board decided
someone on the board made the motion. Don't have the minutes to
for
do that.
30 months.
Someone made the second for it to be continued for 30 months.
For 30
It was a
months.
vote and the
Okay.
vote was in the majority. I do not know and do not remember how everyone voted myself as far as how it was, but it was support enough to give this extra time for these groups to come in
Mhm,
to see the tapes
mhm.
and for it not to be destroyed. So that was a board action. And so that board action, extending it to 30 months was a really a long shot. But now the only way that anything can be changed or that shortened would be through a board action.
I see. Okay.
We voted to do it for 30 months. If we feel like now that that has been, the month since has been more than adequate, there is no call for holding that any further and to go ahead and do what was supposed to have been done in
9 months.
September of 22
No.
to have it destroyed. We, the board, would need to have a majority vote to say, let's nullify our previous action and
For what it's worth, which by the way is very little. My recollection of that meeting, the whole debate was, do we extend it or not? And then when it was, say, okay, we're gonna extend it, for how long? I don't think the 30 months wasn't something that was a particular point of concern.
Okay.
20 months or 30 months or 10
Nothing
months.
magical about it.
Yeah, I think they said, well, I don't know, let's say 30 months.
So it was arbitrary.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it arbitrary, but it wasn't a focus of concern. The
Just a
real
number.
debate was around, do we
Okay.
do it or not?
It wasn't by law or.
No,
No,
yeah,
no.
there's
it was
no-
our act.
Schedule, it would have been destroyed September 24th.
Period.
Yeah, period. And we have, I will also say for the 2 new board members that didn't do this. We have never done that before. It usually does not come to this board.
Mhm.
Those records are destroyed according to records retention law.
It's not even a question.
Well, it's just never presented to the board. That's just part of our function of our duties as staff.
I believe it was said during that meeting, if I recollect properly, that the board at any time could go back and revisit this matter and do away whenever the.
That
interest died
absolutely,
down with it.
that absolutely was brought up at the time.
That was part of the motion.
Okay.
And that's what we're doing now.
Okay.
Absolutely it
Just
was.
revisiting like we promised we would.
Absolutely it was. And has been talked about in some of our meetings since then.
Well, we spoke about it the last time, but we only had
Yes.
3 members. We thought it would be more
Yes.
proper. for
Yeah,
that.
we talked about it,
Thank you.
but we didn't have a bipartisan.
Right.
I didn't want to take a vote on it, even though 3 members could have voted to have done that.
Right.
I wanted to leave it where we did have a bipartisan group.
I remember that
Right.
well. I was sitting out in the hall.
You were.
Heard you say it.
So now we have a bipartisan group.
Okay.
We are all here. We have a motion to end the retention of the 2020 November election. Do we have a second?
Second.
We do have a second. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor to ending the retention of the 2020 November election, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Unanimous to end the retention. Save the county some money.
Yay.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll give us a raise now. Hold your breath.
You betcha.
last question on this topic.
Please, yeah.
I think that all of us have made the right decision here. Is there any obligation to inform the parties that were insisting on this? This is what we're doing. And an obligation can be a matter of somewhat of interpretation, not a legal obligation, but more of an ethical obligation, so that we're giving the appearance of full transparency. Just a question. Suggestion.
I think all eyes are looking.
Mr. Payne?
Well, as you said, there's not a legal obligation, so, and this action is a public action, so I don't see any problem in letting someone know that, you know, this action is taken. But no, but there's not a legal obligation.
So if there is an informal sharing of what has taken place, what is fixing to happen, there's no problem with reporting to any groups or subgroups that may have had an interest.
And we may not hear anything. At the end of the day.
But I mean, you all can report this to whoever you want.
To whomever.
Okay, so for guidance for me, what, okay. Am I hearing that I don't need to notify anyone except introducing the minutes? Am I hearing that?
It's public.
Yeah, that's it. Absolutely.
It's on tape.
It's-
Anybody?
Yeah.
Okay. All of it, no, okay.
And one other thing, Michelle, could that new date be in the
I wrote
rich
it
minutes?
corrected it.
Okay.
Yes, I did that just a minute ago, Drew.
thank
I wrote a 2 over that 3.
Thank you, man.
But as secretary, I'll let you see that here in a minute.
That's what I asked. Doing my job.
We've elected the right man. We have elected the right man.
If I fail you, to throw me out.
We've elected the
You got
right
that
man.
recorded too. You
Yeah.
can watch it.
Cut my pay what it was.
Michelle, would you be able to eliminate the office payment?
Yes.
Yes, that's even better.
I'm just curious.
Yes, yes.
Let's see, that was on the storage fees increase. Are we going back to legal updates? Are we?
I have another business.
You have other business before the
Yes,
tomorrow?
yes, preliminary. Oh, that's another business. Yes.
I don't know if that's legal. Okay, proceed on, please.
Okay, yes.
Other business.
Okay, just other items there. I think you have a sheet looks like this. This is your tentative schedule for the state conference coming up. You never know, this is probably going to change by the time we get there, but what will not change is the conference check-ins at 7:30 on Monday. Feel free on Sunday, you'll go on down to your hotel. They will have your names at the front desk. And you will check in, everything will be taken care of there. And then that evening you are on your own as the board. And then you'll just see the schedule there. Lunch is provided, breakfast is provided. We do have continental breakfast at our hotel. We are not in the host hotel, which I'm not happy about, but
We never have been, have we?
we didn't get in. I think it's sold out in 2.2 seconds. But we're just around the corner at the Hampton Inn.
Walking distance. Walking.
Probably a little less expensive.
No.
Little less, but
Oh, okay.
I'm still,
You feel better to ride.
it's a little bit of a little bit of a walk. In the afternoon, probably okay, but I mean, that's up to you.
It's August. We won't walk.
It's
With Barbara, I'm telling you.
And I think I'm taking the county van, so we could all ride up in the mornings.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's fine too. That's what I got to do.
Okay.
So anyway, you'll see that there, and it's usually very informative, and it's exciting. It's our first time back together since Cindy and Cindy has never been to a state conference because it's been virtual ever since we've been on the board. Clark, you have not been. You and Dwayne have been, but you haven't been in 3 years, so.
Super Bowl of 20.
That's right. Super Bowl of
It's
20.
Super Bowl weekend.
Yeah, that's right.
Bill and I rode together.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway,
Say,
and what we do
Good memory.
too, we will have a table. I'll get there on Sunday and we'll take your name cards. They'll be on one table, so we'll all be together. That's how we usually.
Now, on Tuesday, you might want to drive your own car because people after lunch, they get out.
Mass exit.
Well, it
They
doesn't
don't
end
have
till the
lunch.
afternoon.
It don't matter, they gone. And people, I'm sitting in front, we was all sitting in front and Bill Linden, Bill Isaac, Don Isaac.
Donna,
When my wife and
The
his
other Bill.
wife went shopping, when we went to Carrier one time, and we took, I mean, families can go stay, I mean, it's a big room, it's nice. So that's, that's like a little vacation.
Roger's good.
I wish it was right for a beach, though.
Yeah, no, hey, make that suggestion.
that's what we were banking on, but
I mean, after lunch on Tuesday, I looked around and there's a lot of nothing behind us.
but
Everybody.
if you leave early, you miss the ice cream for the Tuesday afternoon. They feed you well, the breaks, the lunches.
Yeah, that ice cream was.
I've been to a lot of conferences for teachers and they do feed you well.
Yeah.
They do.
Okay, so that's that,
Okay.
and we are hosting the state's mandatory campaign finance training. Surry County's going to host it on August the 24th. From 1 to 5. So they tried to get sessions scattered throughout the state, so they'd be close to most people. We don't have an election this year, but we did do Surry County, so we're excited to host that. It will be in the room next door. You're not obligated to anybody to come, but you're welcome to come if you'd like to. I'm sure, I think you've already maybe been through the training as having run for office, but some of the others, if you want to come, it's there.
May I ask for a 2-minute break?
Yeah.
We'll be at recess for a few minutes, please.
Let me get the things here.
think I have sent them to you all. Barbara and Jimmy, if I have failed to send you all of them, let me know.
You sent them and I
Okay.
did print them.
Okay, so
That was-
772, 749, and 747.
Yes,
Okay. So we have been told that they will probably be back up for discussion this week. We looked at the calendar and so far they're not on there, but we will see. I'll keep you all informed of any changes to those as they come.
thank you.
We have one more vote to take in discussion, but first I want to do a happy moment before we do. We don't do many of those. I want to recognize Sydney. Before she needs to be recognized.
Yay,
Sydney.
whatever it is, yay.
Yeah, yay for Sydney. She's here, so just yay Sydney.
Amen.
Sydney successfully completed her certified elections director exam on Friday, May the 19th. And so there's her unofficial certificate. She'll get her official one and her pin at conference.
Yeah.
He took the class and did all the necessary work after that. And of course, in true Sydney style, told no one she was taking the exam and passed first time. So,
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sydney.
yes, so very proud of Sydney. Thank you. Thank you for all the every day.
Sydney, you should expect that we will embarrass you, or at least some of us will when you go up.
Just please smile.
I have been to conferences of other kinds and you will not.
She was your unofficial. Yeah.
We're so lucky to have the staff that we have working along with our director, and that we have the accomplishments that the staff has. Thank you all. Thank you for supporting Michelle and our board.
Yes, thank you.
Did I hear piano music? Does that mean it's time to quit?
The Jeopardy is in there.
I'm hearing it in the stall next to me. I don't know what's going ahead. Ain't no end last night.
So,
You'd have hollered out to come trade.
Well, I don't know Snickers.
Take one, pass along.
Take it away.
I'm Snickers.
Barbara, as a former
Thank
teacher,
you.
I bet you think we are killing more trees than you've ever seen. Okay, so Saturday, I forwarded this information that we received from Bob Hall to our chairman. He had, you can see his email there. He is asking that each county, all 100 counties, prepare a letter and sign it with your, to express how you feel about these bills that have been introduced. And with that, I will let Dwayne have it, but I've also included the letter I think I shared with you all by email from the Election Board Association president, as well as an article that came out on July 14th about how it will affect the boards, the Senate bills and the counties as well. Also, Graham County Board of Elections, this is the letter they wrote on behalf of their entire Board of Elections. So I have shared that as your first attachment there, just for this board to consider.
The Elections Board Association of North Carolina, which is a group of the different boards, board chairman, and also the full board of different counties in our state. And I think the directors are a member of this also.
No, we're NCAE, we're separate.
Okay.
It's just boards.
Particularly in the Senate Bill 749. Of course, we've got some controversial bills coming up that's in our state legislature and Senate. 747, 749, 772. But particular in the Senate Bill 749. It changes a whole lot of stuff that a whole lot of these board of director, the county boards that are members of the Elections Board Association of North Carolina feel is overreach. I do myself on one particular item that I feel like that the state is not thinking the best that they could. And that is the 100 Board of Elections directors. As they are now, after they are hired, they are overseen, supervised by the State Board of Elections. The State Board of Elections is a bipartisan group of people. And also the staff and the State Board of Elections director, they know this book. They know the good, bad, and ugly. One of the things is that they're proposing is that the directors, the 100 county directors, they will be hired and they will can be fired by the county Board of Commissioners. This, as far as when you talk and say election integrity, and I'm not saying anything about our county Board of Commissioners. I'm not yay or nay saying anything against or for that, but this lady oversees their candidacy. She takes their filing. She takes the reports from the treasurer or the individual candidate and oversees those reports. Maybe having to call, and I don't think any Board of Commissioners, but there have been some candidates that have had to be called into the office, have had to say, your finance report for this quarter is not right. We can't fix it for you. But here it is, and here's what's wrong. You're going to need to go and have it right. You don't want to be reported as a campaign finance error and have an investigation on it. Sometimes that same person has come back in and, well, I think I did it again right. No, multiple times. But her office overseeing the candidacy, the reports, having to potentially call them in on the carpet. What can that do to a potential winner if that person wins and they've got a beef and they've got a gripe with what they had to go through, this terrible stuff, meeting the law. That bipartisan, or that integrity is on trial. The county boards of directors do not need to answer as a county employee to the county commissioner. I think last year and year before, some of the trials and tribulations that took place at the open forums for the county board of commissioners, asking to have this person removed. The County Board of Commissioners, I feel and think they felt good in having a shield to put up and say, we do not hire and we do not fire the County Board of Elections director. We can put up our heat shields. We're protected from what comes in on their meeting dates and the demands that, this is personal on my view, was unfounded to be asked. And so there's, getting back to the bills, there's some things like this that the state needs to slow up on some of the things. You know, I've been on since 2015. I've been on this board, and we had 3 members. I can remember back there was only 3 members on this board. We went to a 4-member board temporarily. It was tried in court, and it went to a 5-member. So I've been 3, 4, and 5. And next year, I might not be here. So be it. So whatever happens, happens. But some of the things I feel stronger about, and that is protection. To keep keep the integrity by keeping the directors answering to the state board. You know, we don't have a bipartisan board of county commissioners. So, you know, it's all partisan. So can that be integrity? Like I say, elections, how things have been set up, it's had safeguards. It's had safety limits that protect to keep the integrity there.
I bet if it's known, the county board of commissioners would not even want to oversee it, because that's just,
That's been expressed.
that cannot be, that would be,
They feel it's a conflict.
I mean, it's a conflict, it's officially a conflict right now, according to our code of ethics that we just looked through, that mixing candidates with, you know, overseeing, and they're gonna make it a law. Now, it goes from being a conflict to being legal. Does that make any sense? I mean, it's just.
I'll use Sydney for an example. If you leave it to where a commissioner can appoint and hire a fire, you may never get someone worked through. Sydney had to go through so many elections before she could even take the class and apply to take the exam. If that cycle is not kept in place, you're never going to have certified election directors be county election directors.
Yeah.
So you lose a lot of experience, a lot. It takes you
Oh, wow, because
2 years to really understand the scope of the job.
Well, the person that's running for county commissioner is running. It's a partisan race. It's going to be a Democrat or it's going to be a Republican. And if they run and they win and they are tasked with hiring an election director, God forbid, but you might find somewhere in this state that there would be an election. I mean, there would be a county commissioner who might favor hiring an election director that they thought might be favorable to them. And could you imagine that there would be a county commissioner that would do that?
And I would feel stronger if it was 5 Democrats that were county commissioners.
You could see it. Yeah, you couldn't have it.
It's not.
You can't have it.
It's applicable.
Yeah, it doesn't, it's just wrong. It's just wrong. It's just.
Yeah,
it
it's
doesn't
not
make any.
Well,
sense.
listen, and there's so many other things in here, you know, the deal where you can walk into a polling area where I'm voting and walk up within 5 feet of me voting is going to create a problem. That's going to create a problem. I'm going to be an unhappy person when you come up that close to me and me trying to vote.
Mhm.
I told
And
my
I would
daughter,
expect anybody to, if you're voting and I walk up on top of you, I would expect that you're going to be upset with me.
Like we ask if you don't mind stepping away a little bit.
And the second time, but then when I say, no, it's my right, I would expect you might not be so polite on the second time.
In House
Yeah.
Bill 772. And part of that, they're saying that up to 12 people for observers per precinct. Ladies and gentlemen, we have some precinct locations that when you put our staff, our polling staff in there, working that precinct, and then you have, and I'm not against observers, but you put up to 12 observers in there,
That's way too many.
where are you gonna put the voters?
You look at Mount Airy one, the municipal building.
Yeah,
Well,
It's-
you can't
but
there.
that's not gonna work.
Partners to have it pretty, because there's no space.
well, my daughter's an assistant judge and volunteers, works on election days, and I told her that it's possible that these people could come up and just get in her business big time. And she said, I'm not gonna work if that's what it's gonna be, and that's gonna be a problem, getting people to work.
Oh, that'll be all,
Yes.
that'll be an incredible challenge.
It's getting worse.
It's like I say, some of this is overreach. And it needs to slow down and talk to the people. There's where this letter went to the legislature. And as a matter of fact, I had one county Board of Elections, Graham County. Their total 5-member Board of Elections signed their letter. I think it's included with, because they see the problems that it's going to create.
Oh, yeah, Grand Board, the second page.
Well, the people that signed the back of the letter dated July 12th, you can look, it's a true bipartisan. I think it's more Republicans on there than Democrats, but it's very bipartisan.
And there is more, including the sign of the president of the association is also a Republican.
That really pleased me to see that. I think it's, I think what's happened is the law was written, the proposed legislation was written. It reminds me when I was doing building and you'd have an architect and he would draw up this thing and it looks great on paper and they can see what they want to accomplish, but they're not actually in the field doing the building. We don't know what it's going to end up like in reality when you go to the practical effect of it. And now that it's been put in the hands of the people that will actually apply it, people are seeing it and going, wait a minute, this is going to create absolute chaos, it's going to create havoc. And, my hope is enough people will react. We all understand what politics is. It's for partisan advantage. We're not so naive. We don't grasp that. It would be the same way if Democrats were controlling the legislature. Ideally, they would all go, we're not going to do that to advantage anyone on either side. But I don't think the country's got to that place yet. But the practical effect of this is going to be just absolute chaos. pleases me so good that this election board association has written this letter, and then that Graham County has gone out and did that, and that's
I didn't know you could have a vice chairman. They got a vice chair. Where did that come from?
Yeah, that was old,
That's from 20 years ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
It's
That's just
not-
nobody
it's
has
not in
told
the
them
book
that.
anymore.
they don't know that yet.
Mine just like some pie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why'd you call it?
I've never heard of that.
Now, the question I believe, if we could draw in, is does Surry County, do we want to be engaged with sending our legislators for this area letters from this board or part of this board, their feelings that they don't need to be so quick to act, that some of these things they need to be talking to either us, the state board, the directors association, to get it right. If they're going to do it, get it right where that it works, where that it's integrity involved. Is there any consideration or thought from the board to participate in trying to get our legislators to slow down a bit?
I would hope we would add our voice. And I think it is time sensitive.
Oh,
Yes, I think if we could write a purely bipartisan or no partisan, however you want to take it, and make our feelings known that how this may corrupt the process. And that's something we surely don't want in either way.
What bothers me more than as much as anything is to have Barbara and Jimmy come on this board. And I mean, they understand what's happening here, but to be blindsided in effect, to walk into this, having never served, and the first thing you get is these bills. To have to deal with what an election might look like under this. Not that it's not challenge enough as it was, trust me. I mean to tell you, not that it wasn't challenge enough. But
It's a challenge for us too.
having just a general idea of what this would create. Bless all of us if it comes to pass. I really do hate to see you come in with this on the horizon for us if it works out this way. And they work to pass this kind of legislation.
Well, I know y'all got some feelings on it. What do y'all think about that?
It reminds me of the school system. Those way at the state level, at the county level, tell us, and they have no clue what needs to be done.
Never been in the classroom.
You listen,
Perfect analogy.
37 years of it. And I'm telling you right now, it's wrong. You know, if they need to do their work, they aren't doing it. Bottom line.
Thank you.
Having both in the private sector and the public sector. Happens every. It's nothing new.
Looks
Of
like-
course, top down
Right.
and pushing things on.
But-
When
Why don't they do their job? This is not their job.
Are not, there are already statutes on the books allowing observers.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
Yes.
there's federal law in their state.
Yeah,
We have plenty
Yeah.
already.
yeah,
So to your point.
Yeah.
Yeah, abide by this.
Oh, yeah,
this
and,
is not
and it worked
yeah.
because I have worked the elections.
Something we already have established.
Right.
Right.
That's a
So-
good point. It's not that it's a new
Yeah.
idea.
No, this is, it's not, you're right.
What we have is working.
Right.
Both parties are represented equally
Mhm,
and have very
Can-
much.
mhm,
Winning each precinct election day
mhm.
or every day one stop.
And I'm sure, Madam Director, it's a lot about training your team as to what that looks like and what to anticipate. And, you know, if, if we're all doing our jobs, then it's not gonna be an issue.
Exactly.
Mhm.
That was a good analogy, though,
That
from coming from Raleigh, never been in the
Mhm.
classroom, telling y'all how to do
is
it.
perfect.
Mm,
It's exceptional.
It happens in each entity of the government. Yes,
Yeah.
I'm afraid
Crazy.
it is crazy. They don't know what they're doing. I'm
What-
sorry.
Maybe good intentions,
So
maybe,
Um,
maybe.
here's the question.
You even wonder about that sometimes.
Are we gonna be voting on whether or not we want to sign on to the
A letter?
Association?
That's what I'm looking for advice. That's what I'm looking for. A motion, if it takes a motion, I'm not sure. And then exactly what we're signing on to. You know, we have two letters here that spells out some of the pitfalls that may be ahead. Is there, I don't want to get into something other whether we've got to have something other. Mr. Payne draw up something other and be sent and it be a draft and no, I don't like that. Or how are we going to manufacture this that we all agree?
And
And
it's
it's,
time
and we
sensitive.
feel good to sign it.
That's the key.
Time sensitive thing is,
It needs to go. It needs to go.
If there's something other that we see that, you know, I like this, I like what it says, I agree with it. You know, we can adopt that and have that quickly on the letterhead and I don't want to put anything before you that's what would it be, subjective. I want us to know what we're agreeing to.
Well, let me ask this question. Who would we be talking about forwarding a letter like this to? Only to our legislators? Or to all legislators?
I think it would be the committee and our legislators. It would include the people that are involved in this, that are on this committee doing this, and our local.
You're exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
Okay,
think it should definitely go beyond our local, but just the committee.
Oh, the committee.
okay, we're in agreement there?
Mhm.
If I would make a suggestion, I would CC anything you send to any General Assembly members to the Directors Association, the Board of Electors Association, and I would add the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners.
That's a good idea.
They're the legislative body that represents the county commissioners. And I've had some conversations with some folks, some staff over there, and frankly, I think their take is they don't really want to be thrown into that briar patch. They really.
I'm sure.
There are
Not
patches
to-
large enough.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
There's no way,
Great idea.
no way.
Thank you, Mark.
Mhm.
Okay,
Well, how can we compose this and?
Well,
Well,
be in
we
time
can
sensitive?
copy and paste.
Can we use?
Well, I
what we
think-
have in front of us?
well, I don't think we
We
have
can-
time to compose anything.
No, it's in a hurry.
We've got two really good examples here.
Yeah,
I don't
we do.
think we have to worry about originality.
No.
I am all for favor. All lawyers.
Don't use that word. Don't use that word.
Sure.
You can't.
The Graham,
I am all for signing precedent.
the Graham County Board of Elections, the way it is written as if, well, it is from a Board of Elections. I think it hits on the things that are concerning. It doesn't take these 3 election bills apart, piece by piece, and putting them up as targets on the shooting range. It takes the ones that are really close to heart. Is that what we see from Graham County Board? For us to adopt it and it be dated July the 18th
Mhm.
with our names?
We'll just take out Graham County, but Surry County.
Let me ask,
Well-
if you make sure you do flip over, because this particular Graham County does, in the final paragraph, they would like, for the General Assembly to, look at the final budget to include significant funds to modernize scenes. So I don't know if you all want that in there or not, but I did want to point that out.
For the benefit of our new directors, explain scenes.
Yeah, that is the software that staff uses to do everything with keeping your voter rolls. It's your voter view, which is where you can see everything with voters, their jurisdiction, where they live, their voter history, their changes, updates. Then you have voter scan. That's where each morning Robin and Sydney get a DMV report for the night of who's registered at DMV. Then they go in and double check all that information. So it's all those modules. It goes all the way to election reporting.
This really, this software allows you and your team to implement the checks and balances of all the information.
And this is requesting for budgeting for the state board to be able to modernize saves.
I wish they would do that, but I don't know that it should be a part of what, I think that's a separate, I think it's a separate thing.
Yeah,
That personally.
Better out.
To the weeds. I
Yes.
think it needs to be.
stay on subject.
Right, less is better.
Yeah, I think. to add-
Stick to what you're after.
Mhm. Yes, specifically,
I think we're all in agreement to take the last paragraph out.
yes.
So that portion of it anyway.
Mhm. That doesn't relate
But
to
way
the
it's
other.
coded, I'm just curious, Madam Director, from a user standpoint, since I doubt any of us are really use us or using it, does it need to be modernized and upgraded?
It does. There are definitely things that, you'd be able to link documents and update that just aren't there. To make it much more efficient and user friendly. You all want to chime in on that.
Perhaps we can
Maybe another discussion. That
use the last sentence there. Working together, we can help North Carolinians have confidence and pride in our election system.
Yeah.
That's in sense.
Yeah, it is.
That's a good sign off.
Yeah.
Okay. Could I hear a motion? Or an adoption? A motion would be preferred by me. To use the Graham County Board of Elections letter.
Template.
Is there
as a
template? Yeah,
template.
template. Mhm.
I think that's a motion.
I make a motion.
We have a motion, Mr. Yockley, to adopt the Graham County Board of Elections letter dated July the 11th, that we will date July 18th. With everything except the first part of the last paragraph is what we had stated in discussion.
Mhm.
Is there a second?
I say.
There is a second. Any further discussion? If not, all,
Hurry it out. Hurry it out.
no further discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
Uh-huh.
Opposed, the ayes have it. Produce a letter, Madam Director, and I'll sign it, and we'll have all names on it.
Now, Sarah Stevens and then Phil Burner.
And
Um,
settle.
Hall,
He said, oh, that's
Is
right,
that
he
Hall?
said,
Kyle.
Yeah, Kyle Hall.
yeah, he's got a,
None of those are on the deal, so you'll.
Well, we got
Our-
to send one specifically to the committee.
And our and our local legislators, legislators that serve our district.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then again, Mark's recommendation to CC the 3 groups.
Yes, those groups would be great.
That's not too, you'd be able to, that's
Oh, that'd
not too burdensome, is it, for you?
That'd be easy.
If you need some help, you've got it.
The secretary, right?
You've got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that's all I have in other, it's plenty, I know.
Nothing other than the. Mark, want to say anything about that or that?
Yes, I'm so sorry.
All the conclusion,
Yeah.
yeah. 3 of you are very familiar with the Bose versus Surry County Board of Elections case. Don't think you guys have as much familiarity, but I think you know something about it. But it was a public records request that began as a straight public records request for what was defined by Mr. Bose as a cast vote record. And we, the county told him that we couldn't comply with his public records request for 3 reasons. One, we didn't have the document. We didn't generate that document. It is something that could be generated from that machine.
Right.
And it's my understanding in other states, and in other states, it might be generated. But it's my understanding that no North Carolina local board of elections created the document. So 1, we don't have it. 2, there's a statute that would say that if we did have that document, it would be a confidential document because it has valid information. And there's a North Carolina statute that I think is not in every other state that says an electronic ballot can't be released unless by court order. And 3, there was a state board of elections directive because the state board of elections was also sent similar public records requests that said to the local boards of elections, if you get this request and you have this document, you can't release it for the statutory reason. And something that is in your book and everything else is one of the sort of unique things about your job is if the state board of elections sends a directive out to local boards of elections, by statute, you are bound by those directives. And so that was the 3rd reason why we couldn't release it if we had it, was we're directed not to do so by the state board of elections. Mr. Bose decided that he would file a lawsuit to seek that document. We had after some time of discovery and delays, the hearing was finally heard on August 31st of 20. No, that's not right. What's the date? October of 22. That's not right either.
Hold on, it was March,
Just recent.
Yeah, it was recently.
not March, no, it was May. It was in May.
Recently, we had our hearings in front of the judge. And we made frankly the exact same argument there, and the judge went ahead and ruled that that was correct, and denied the motion for denied the complaint for the public records. And in my opinion, it was a fairly straightforward and not overly complicated litigation, but it took a good 1.5 years and a lot of time and efforts, and that's just and that's tells you that just how complicated some of these things can be. But the time for appeal has passed, so this matter will not be appealed, so this specific matter is now resolved and done and behind us. And it should be noted that this board was the defendant. So it wasn't the county or the election director was named as well. But that is now resolved.
I've been sued by bigger people.
But have you ever been sued to get something that you never did have?
I think that's first.
After you said, I don't have it and it don't exist. Well, I'm gonna sue you for it anyway.
There still is a lot of confusion out there about this. And I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what a cast vote record is and whether it's and where it's out there. And actually, there is a draft bill that was presented to change the statute that says cast vote records aren't confidential.
That
Yeah.
bill has not progressed.
Yeah, it's and that's one thing about to sort of keep in mind on all of these bills. It's really hard to tell what bills may or may not have, as lobbyists like to say, has legs or not. I personally don't think that bill that would make CVRs not confidential has legs. I can't say with confidence that same thing about the other bills that we've been discussing.
They are already trying to put 772 into the omnibus bill. Then it would be two bills. So
772, the seven.
observer,
I fear what happens is that people say, like the CVR, I mean, the document that they say this thing exists. And that misinformation is propagated it so much that people begin to believe it. And it's just repeated over and over until people believe it so much, regardless of what you say, that they're willing to sue for it. I mean, and there's no convincing, no, that's not a real thing.
confusion I think Mark touched on is some states do, some states allow it.
Sure.
And that's where if you do hear from other states and maybe, or speakers are from other states.
Come to this state.
The confusion is easy because their state allows it, and yes,
Well,
it has.
And in this case, we had some folks from other states that actually came here to Dobson and said, do it's here and you can get it.
Right.
Came here in this building and said,
That might-
it's here and you can get it.
And every state has something about, some law about protection of ballots and balance information. But those laws are different a little bit in every state. And so I'm sure that there are states that have similar confidentiality, but nobody's got the exact confidentiality law that we have. And that's another thing that I think creates confusion.
Anything further?
That's all other business.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a preliminary hearing for a voter challenge in which I will relinquish my position as chairman. I think I'd have to, because I am the challenger. And so I have to back away from moderating the meeting. So with that, I'll be in the witness stand.
Sprung something else ways up.
Well, and one thing I can do is sort of introduce what you're here. But the actual conduct of the meeting, is the board's do. It'll be easy because you have to take information, but as my understanding, there's only one witness that you're going to have to listen to. Okay, and what you're about to hear is a voter challenge voting the voter registration of James E. Silver Jr., which you have in front of you. And this process is a little bit different from most of your most of the things that you guys have to do. Most of the things you have to do, I categorize as administrative functions. In this, you are acting in a quasi judicial function. You are acting as a judicial body in hearing this. A quasi judicial hearing, and I've got a definition here that's helpful to you guys, I think. It's when a body such as this is concerned with the adjudication of specific rights and obligations rather than the promulgation of rules. It requires discretion and a decision that is subject to notice and hearing requirements and judicial review. You are the analog to you folks is you're the district court judge, and this is your probable cause hearing. This is to determine whether or not you think there's enough to go to a full hearing. So this is
prima facie evidence.
yes, yeah, there you go. And you will take in sworn testimony. Not the empty chair, but when she gets back, somebody will have to swear her in. And the only issue that's in front of you now is there probable cause under the statute 163-80-85, and we'll incorporate that entire statute in the record, so the entire statute's there. But it's the provision of that that is directly in front of you is 85 C, is it 5? Yeah, 5, which says somebody a challenge can be made for one of these reasons. And number 5 is that the person has been adjudged guilty of a felony and is ineligible to vote under 163-55-2, or 55 subparagraph 2. And that 163-55-2 basically says that if someone has been charged with a felony, either in North Carolina federal courts, or if they've been charged in a felony in another state, the subject of which would be a felony if it were a North Carolina offense, is ineligible to vote until his or her citizenship has been restored. Citizenship can be restored when you have completed your sentence and any conditions of parole and as such, or there's been a pardon. And let's see. We'll have to have sworn testimony to present the challenge. And as the chair said, it's one of the peculiarities of the job you guys have is if the county finds a potential basis for a challenge, that the county can, and in this case, the chair can initiate the challenge. But your election director can present the documentation that does this. If you feel like you need any to ask the chair some questions, he would have to be sworn in too.
Is he's filling his duty as chairman by taking this out? It wasn't anything that he discovered. He was just fulfilling his oath of office.
Correct.
Okay.
There's nothing that says he couldn't in a personal capacity, but he is doing this in his official capacity as chair. And so someone is going to have to swear in the chair. I mean,
Give it, so,
You gotta swear her in.
her?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got to swear? You
Yeah.
gotta swear in?
Yep.
Yeah.
What? How can I swear?
Uh, How many times does that happen? I see that so many times.
Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you shall give to the Surry County Board of Elections for the hearing challenging the voter registration of James E. Silva Jr. shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
The voter challenge form dated June 28th. Yes, it's June 21st. Dwayne Carter, the undersigned certified that I'm a registered voter and now at number 8, precinct of Surry County, state of North Carolina. Residence is 152 Greystone Lane, Mount Airy, 27030. Phone number is 336-374-9100. I hereby challenge the voter registration of James E. Silva Jr., who is registered to vote at 598 East Pine Street, Mount Airy, North Carolina, 27030. I challenge the above named voter for the reason checked below. The person has been adjudged guilty of a felony, and the person's rights of citizenship have not been restored. And this, Mr. Carter did swear or affirm and signed and dated June 21st, 2023. I contacted Chairman Carter after receiving a letter. We actually sent this letter to Mr. Silva dated June 6, 2023. And this was a list maintenance process. We received the corrections report with the felons listed on it. Mr. Silva was named as being on the roll as his DOC placement. And we also gave, of course, his conviction date as October 18th, 1979. Mr. Silva then was mailed this letter to begin the 30-day countdown for him. And upon receipt of the letter, he wrote on it that he was convicted in Massachusetts. He was allowed to vote in Massachusetts for 30 years. Not convicted in the state of North Carolina. And I'm interpreting that what he is saying by number 3, that it was transferred, Massachusetts rules should have transferred to North Carolina, in his opinion. We received this from him on June 15th, 2023. And then if you go to the bottom, where he says, I, James Edward Silva, object to my removal as a voter on the following grounds. I have the right to vote in Massachusetts, where I'm from, for the last 30 years. I moved here and should be allowed my rights. I am not convicted in this state. Transferred from Massachusetts. Also, I already voted in the last election. Mr. Silva was allowed to vote at the November 8th, 2022 general election because he was allowed at that time. The law changed, and for the November general election, felons could vote. He, sure, his parole officer made him aware of that, or he might have even seen it in the news, that he was allowed his rights to vote as the law stated at that time. And we checked his record, he did participate in that election.
Not if the parole officers, anything like that, it used to be.
Parole officer
I
told-
mean, is he still on parole here? Sorry, I shouldn't ask.
Well, Department of Corrections, he appeared on our report, parole, his full name, his date of birth, his current address, and his conviction date.
Is he under supervision in the state now by a parole officer?
I do not know, I just know he is on parole.
He's supposed, it goes through something called interstate compact. And then North Carolina can accept to parole him for Massachusetts, but it's a long process. Yeah, and it could take a while, but if he's on parole here, he should have an officer in this county.
Well, he's appearing on the report. And we checked again after this report, and he was still on the Department of Corrections records.
But the third page,
The third page was the report, yes, that we, a copy of it with just Mr. Silva's information. Of course, there were more people on that report, but
it doesn't say what he was on parole for though. Nowhere.
Not in the report.
It's a belt.
not in the report.
Something from 79, it's gotta even about know what it is.
Yeah,
I mean, exactly, sir.
I said, I think you're right,
Yes.
but we don't know.
Well,
When did the law change after the November 2022 election?
I've got that in my testimony.
Actually, that would be something that this body could take judicial notice of. I don't think you need to testify to that. You can just give them that information.
Dwayne Carter swear that the evidence that I should give to the Surry County Board of Elections for this hearing challenging the voter registration of James E. Silva Jr. shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help me God.
first time I've ever seen that.
believe it worked.
You done well.
It's a time for firsts.
You done well.
This hearing is called sort of because of a catch-22, where that a North Carolina Superior Court judge determined that denying the voting rights of people serving their felony sentences outside of jail or prisons violates state constitution. The decision has been was appealed, but this is people may register to vote starting July 27th, 2022. So this was the date of the determination of the Superior Court judge saying that anyone not serving their sentence could register to vote. And any person serving a felony sentence outside of prison or jail is eligible to register. And so that went into effect July 27th, 2022. And apparently Mr. Silva registered because of this news. This was pretty much big news on statewide media. And so he registered, and apparently he voted in the next election. However, an enactment of April 28th, 2023 of this year, 2023, the State Board of Elections updated the state voter registration applications to comply with Friday's North Carolina Supreme Court ruling regarding the voting rights of individuals convicted of felonies. The Supreme Court ruled that North Carolinians convicted of felonies must complete their sentences, including any period of probation, post-release supervision, or parole before they regain their rights. This caused Mr. Silva to lose his right to vote. So there is the catch-22. Whenever a Superior Court judge ruled yes, people out of jail, on parole, serving post-release, they can register to vote and vote. And then the North Carolina Supreme Court came back and aced them and said, no. And so that's Mr. Silva's catch-22. And so the state directive was that if any voter, anybody in our registration files that was on the list and sent the letter that Michelle was talking about and returns it, he's objecting to that, to the act of taking off the rolls. Anybody not returning their letter, they're accepting what the Supreme Court judgment was, and they will go now after so many days. Well, that's already happened, that they're removed from our voter registration. So Mr. Silva was the only one to object, and so the state says that if there are any objections and that there is that the challenge has to be made and the challenge to be signed by the chairman. That's me, that's why I'm here, that's what my report is, so that's what you have to vote on.
It's pretty, there's not much, it's all pretty plain. I mean, he could. Supreme Court's rule, now he can't. Michelle has received a notice from the Department of Corrections. He has conviction. He's a felon, still on parole, according to the records that she's received. I mean, that's just the facts. You know, unless, I mean, that's just the case.
Plain and simple.
You know, she is sending you this.
Yeah,
She is sending
yeah,
him
I mean, really, I mean,
No, your task today, because it's a two-step process,
yeah,
is simply to say, we think there's probable cause to move forward with a full hearing to determine whether or not this challenge should be upheld. So that's all you have to do, and again, my personal opinion, which doesn't count at all, is that no, it's not very complicated.
no,
And the next
Plain and
time
simple.
when we have the hearing, he will have an opportunity to come here and be.
That's
present
right.
his case.
That's
Okay.
right. And he could present, things don't transfer from the other state, just like we talked before.
right.
You know, the law of North Carolina is what applies in North Carolina. And the only thing that he could, and the point of the evidence is going to be, well, are you on parole or not? And, you know, and DOC could make an error. And if he can bring something that shows he's not on parole, that changes everything. But if it's not, I think it's simple.
Yeah. And from what I'm reading, I'm sure everybody reads the same way. He had the opportunity to say he's not on parole, show proof that he didn't do that.
But he must be granted that opportunity if this
Sure.
board sees that we need to follow through with the evidentiary hearing or challenge.
That's all we're doing. That's what all of y'all are doing today, is to say, yes, there's enough to have that full hearing. He could not show up, and where his voter registration card is flagged, he would be taken out of the voter registration roll. He may show up and have paperwork showing I've completed my parole and any post sentence. And this is from Massachusetts, is Massachusetts. And so here's my evidence. Or he might say, well, no, I'm in North Carolina, Massachusetts rules apply down here.
Well, and that's what he's suggesting
Yes,
clearly on this.
I did it for 30 years. What can I do it now?
It seems logical to me, which that's not common at all. But this was the opportunity to take that to the evidence. So
He did.
he did.
I mean, there's
So
enough evidence to go forward with hearing. That's what we're deciding now.
Is that a motion out here?
I make a motion. That there is prima facie evidence in the case and to go to the next step.
That next step being the
Open hearing,
Full hearing, full hearing.
Full challenge.
where he can come, bring papers or attorney or whoever.
I'll say.
Can you call for a vote, Mr. Chairman, or take?
And my back is Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I think this is an unusual process. It's not the only one we'll come across.
I didn't know during this I could wear both hats. So, as challenger and as
Sit in my
chairman.
chair.
But we have a motion on the floor with a second to move forward with a full evidentiary hearing for James E. Silva Jr. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Nay? I did not vote.
Can I hear the ayes one more time?
Aye.
Nays? Okay,
Can I ask if there was any other letter sent out, Michelle? Was it all done at one time or was it just this one for convicted
Oh,
felons?
no, there was many.
Were they?
I had a feeling it wasn't.
And no others were sent back? Dispute me.
There were, I want to say 80.
My goodness.
It had changed. And that was the problem, where the law changed. If you weren't in jail or incarcerated, you could vote.
Mm.
But then it had to go to felons, so.
I didn't imagine that many felons would be interested in living in this
Do
county.
you know how many of those 80 have voted in the last election?
Yeah,
That'd be interesting.
I would say it's very low. Very low. They're afraid to take those type of chances.
I was just going to share in my previous role within the Surry County GOP in calling people to the precinct. This particular person was on the vote rolls, and when I called him, he said, "Why are you calling?" He said, "I'm a convicted felon." And I said, "Okay, but it wasn't in this state. It was in Virginia." So he just said, I don't vote. Just plain and simple, I don't vote.
Most of them don't take that chance.
With this board's indulgence, I'm gonna go ahead and leave, so I get home before 9-year-olds left alone.
Oh,
Mr. Manning, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Mark.
Drive careful, sir.
We'll see at the hearings.
Yep.
Figure out that way you can get out.
Okay.
How long will it be, Michelle, before we have it here?
Well, we will have to notice 10 days and at least, and then we'll have to notify him by regular mail. He has no phone number. No, not that it matters. We have to notice him by mail like, according to law. But- So we are looking more like it would probably be mid-August. I don't know if it would be before the conference or not.
Then coordinate some dates with all of us.
Yeah.
And then this would, we have an open time frame.
Yeah.
In the next month or so.
And what time is supper?
I know, I'm
How about
sorry.
lunch?
Have you not been hearing this thunder over here all this afternoon?
This
Lord, I've been sitting here going,
And my husband probably.
You got to keep in front of your name there.
I've eaten candy hard as I can go.
There's
this whole time.
singers right there.
Do you know I've not seen that being hid behind this? If I'd have seen that, I'd eat every bit of it. Look here, that's been just like that. Not seen it one time.
Sydney hit him behind there.
You're not behind mine.
It's hidden behind my name thing.
We can come back to order.
Oh, yeah.
Is there anything further?
This.
Anything further, Madam Director?
No, sir.
Anything from the floor? Any of our board members?
Yes. I appreciate our new board member so much. Thank y'all for being here.
Appreciate
Thank you
you.
for serving.
Appreciate,
Well,
Thank
I'll
you,
let
sir.
vote.
yes, thank you. Yes.
Everyone.
listen, let me just say
I
that
have a lot to learn.
I've spent time with this lady on the Little League ball fields. Why, when she was talking, I had to throw out. Her son used to be a good, I just got to see him on the Little League ball field, and I took that
Oh, yeah. They
Way
love
back-
Each other.
way,
yes.
way back when. But
Yes.
anyway, it's good to have y'all here.
Thank you so much. It's good to be with you.
There's one thing that I heard a long time ago, so it's not original with me. But it was way back years ago, probably whenever we had a 3-person board. And that is that our county political parties takes our names and submits them to the state political parties. And they submit them to the state board of elections, where they are we're looked at where we don't have any convictions or such, or and that we're properly registered in the county, such. But through all of this political process, after we come into this boardroom, our political colors disappear. Our red and blue hats are hung on a nail outside in the hall. We come in serving all county voters, all county candidates for their best interest in the all. And so through everything that we have to do to get here and all of the politics, whenever it comes in around this table here, the big room or the small room, we're here for the benefit of the best of all voters and the support of our wonderful board. That's all. Anything else? Anyone else has anything to say? I would. Yes. Huh?
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion
I
on the floor to
second.
adjourn. We have a
I've
second.
looked at you all day, waiting for you to second something or make a motion. And there we go. Here.
Well, to second.
She come through right when it meant the most.
All those in favor, please say aye. We are